Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're watching. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. He's here. Guys, we're two retired New York City police detectives with over 20 years of law enforcement each. Compared together, that's over 40 years. If you like all things true crime related from that police perspective, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Naomi Irion case out of Vegas, out of the Vegas area, Nevada. I got to tell you, this one has got me really going nuts. So many moving parts to it. Perpetrator Troy Driver is in custody. Fernley, Nevada is where her hometown is. The Lyon County Sheriffs, small town sheriff department, is working with the FBI. Ed, I know we talked about this case, but before we get into it, how you doing, brother?
I'm hanging in there, Ron. How about yourself?
Not too bad. It's been a long week without Ed Wallace, and everybody's just going crazy asking. I know it's not Vegas, Reno, Sparks. I get that wrong all the time because when I think of Nevada, I always think of Las Vegas because that's.
Yeah.
I've only visited two places in Nevada, the Henderson Dam. You know, I went there and did that boat ride, and Vegas Strip. So when I say in my mind, I say Nevada, I always think about Vegas. But yeah, thanks for that correction. There's so many people out there who dot their I's and cross their T's. Me, I'm an old man. Sometimes my head just gets going. But yeah, she's from Fernley. She moved here from over in South Africa, 18 years young, and moved in with her brother, August of 2021. You know, Ed, any thoughts before we go into our first little piece here? I know that you had a chance to review this case. Just any thoughts from the crime scene? That's what we're going to give you from a crime scene investigator's perspective.
Well, not so much. My initial thoughts is I'm glad they identified a suspect immediately, and I'm glad they grabbed that suspect and they have him in custody, and they got the two vehicles involved in the incident in their custody as well. I mean, it was quick work. I know it was, several days. It would have been nicer if it was faster, but in many cases we don't have this. We're years or months away in some of these investigations. You look at some of these investigations that we're involved in, there's still quote unquote no suspects arrested and no one being held accountable for these missings, so forth.
Yeah, and the perp, Troy Driver, 41 years old. The guy looks like he's about 61. He definitely looks like he's got a lot of miles on him, and I'm just so happy that both vehicles are in custody because we know from a criminal, from the criminal standpoint, there's so much evidence in between her vehicle and his vehicle, and we're going to get into that. That's what this show is going to be about. We're not going to be going and doing deep dives into, what led up to this, because we like to do from an educational standpoint. And Ed, as soon as I heard these vehicles were taken into custody, I immediately just thought of you right away. And I just said, this is right up Ed's alley. We're going to cover this. But before we go into it, I want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who positively engage with us. Ed and I, we greatly, greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys, because without your support, without the subscribers and the folks who go that extra mile, it's really hard to operate this kind of true crime community and channel. All the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, the research, the time and effort. So it's greatly appreciated. And thank you, Fuzzy Doxy, for the wonderful message. She says, can you get someone on to speak about how to stay safe? Absolutely. We're going to do that, Fuzzy Doxy. That's a great one. And that'll be for an upcoming show. So I appreciate you talking about that. But for the folks who are from outside the United States, I'm going to play a quick little clip. It's only 2 minutes. Let's play this so it sets up everything, and we will go from here and we'll pick it up.
From 2 News, this is Breaking News. Big breaks in the case of the disappearance of Naomi Irion. A suspect is in custody and a pickup truck impounded. What we know so far tops a special edition of 2 News. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Kennedy.
And I'm Michelle Lorenzo. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, we have a photo of the suspect here, identified as 41-year-old Troy Driver from Fallon. He's being held on charges of kidnapping. Authorities have also confirmed they've impounded the truck they have been looking for, but they say they are still looking for Naomi Irion. Valentina Bonaparte is live in Fernley with more. Valentina, what can you tell?
Law enforcement is not sharing much more than what you've just said, but tonight I spoke to the family. They say what happened brings them hope, but they will only rest once they know Naomi is safe.
But I was so excited. But then the thoughts started coming. What if this isn't the guy? Oh no, it says that they haven't found her yet. What if he won't tell us where she is? What if he took her life and killed her and stashed her somewhere and won't tell her?
And again, I always stop this and I mention this is the true horror that goes on behind the scenes of these missing person cases, and where nefarious or bad things are happening to people. There's real people behind these cases, and that's her mom. And you saw the sheer emotion and sheer terror coming from her. It's just heartbreaking. I just want to let the rest of this play, Ed.
Yeah, and Ron, and can compare that to our boys in California and how his adoptive parents reacted, and in the Wells case as well, acted, as opposed to this mother.
Exactly. This is the way a true caring, non-involved parent would react. Now, not everybody reacts the same, but this is what you see from somebody who's really emotionally distraught, and their whole world is crashed down on them. This is the type of behavior that you'd see from someone who really loves and cares for their daughter. And like Jacqueline, like very good analogy there, Ed, like Jacqueline and Trezell West, and I hate to mention it, but Don and Candace Wells. They're spending their nights drinking. Well, he's in jail, but they're spending their nights drinking prior to that and carrying on the internet. It's just not what you would think you would see from a loving, caring parent. So let's let the rest of this go. It's only a couple more minutes, actually a minute.
The family says the news is the hope they needed, especially since tomorrow will be 2 weeks since Naomi Irion was last seen here in Fernley. I asked her brother Casey if he knows the suspect who was arrested. He says the man.
There's the truck. This is a picture that we've seen hundreds of times. The Lyon County Sheriff's Office shared that. And that's the truck that they took into custody, and we'll show you some more pictures of that, courtesy of another YouTube channel that posted that on there. Let's look.
Is not someone he knows had been in contact with his sister. Will be 2 weeks since Naomi Irion was last seen here in Fernley. I asked her brother Casey if he knows the suspect who was arrested. He says the man is not someone he knows had been in contact with his sister. The family says the search will happen tomorrow. They will not stop until she's with them. The search will be right where I'm at 825 Commerce Center here in Fernley. It will be in the west parking lot behind Love's truck stop. And of course, this is a developing story, and we'll share more with you as soon as we learn it. Covering the story, Valentina Bonaparte, 2 News.
And we're all hoping she's safe. Valentina, thank you. And as the search for Naomi Irion continues, if you have any information, please contact the Lyon County Sheriff's Office or Secret Witness at the numbers on your screen.
So there you have it. Again, Ed, you see the sheer terror in the mom's face, and her brother, sister. I've contacted them on behalf of EquuSearch Midwest to offer assistance if any is needed for drone searching. That's one of the great things that you and I have in our tool belt, is that we are the law enforcement liaisons with EquuSearch Midwest and Dave Rader. I reached out to him and he said, if they need anything, we'll get a drone pilot over there to help them out. And I know Gene Robinson, who's been on this channel many times, he's ready to go. And Ed, you have drone experience yourself. Not that you would go out there and do that, but I know that you have your own drones and you know how this stuff works. And I think in this situation, before we go into the forensics, we're in the middle of the desert. How important is drone searching when talking about recoveries here or finding her?
This is a high, dry mountain desert areas out there in Reno, the Tahoe, and that region of Nevada, bordering with California and so forth. So very extensive land out there to look at. There's plenty of places that somebody can go for nefarious reasons to dispose of an individual. And so, yeah, a drone would be invaluable because there's so much acreage that needs to be searched, miles and miles, square miles of empty land. It's not like here in the Northeast where developers develop any little stitch of land they can get their hands on.
Right.
There's a lot of wide open land out there, and I'm sure it has many secrets.
Right. And, folks in the chat and everybody that's following this case, I love to see how well educated our audience is. And that's in part thanks to you and myself putting out some great, valuable information on previous cases. That I see people talking about any pings. Is there any activity on her phone? We did hear our last update from the detective at the Lyon County Sheriff, is that the pings and all the activity from her cell phone has ceased. They haven't gotten anything recently, but again, has been really no updates. And Ed, you and I speak about this all the time. When we hear radio silence from our law enforcement partners, it doesn't mean that they gave up. It means that they are just keeping a tight lip on the evidence they have. Before we go into the evidence, just talk about the importance of keeping stuff close to the chest, Ed, and why we do that.
Well, several reasons. Well, there could be co-conspirators here. He may not have acted alone, okay? And there are other people involved, and they don't have all the other players identified yet. So you don't want to show your hand and let everybody know what it is that you know. And so you have to keep your cards close to your vest. You don't want to poison your investigation. I see if somebody put up the OPSEC. It stands for operational security. Absolutely. And that also goes for individuals too. And, we talked about, keeping people safe. You have to have situational awareness. You have to keep your head on a swivel, 360 degrees. You have to know your surroundings. You can't bury your head into your cell phone and be texting and Snapchatting all the time and not taking a glance around to see who's near you, what's going on around you, and understand if there's any threats being posed to you while you're sitting there on your phone.
Absolutely, 100%, Ed. And I think, I had mentioned that on the last stream that I did a couple of days ago. You were in the chat with me and you were I know you were jumping up and down. Ron, great points. We need to always understand that our surroundings are dangerous. It's not like you have to be paranoid, but, as a woman or even as a young man, or any age in between, you always have to know what's going on around you, especially at early hours and late hours of the evening. This young girl, 18 years old, was sitting in that Walmart parking lot waiting for a shuttle to bring her to Panasonic where she works. And, spending time for a youth, or even me, I'll start looking on my phone if my wife goes in the store, but this is me.
Mm-hmm.
Look up and load. When you're loading, look up. That's from the range, right?
Right.
We always need to, I'm always looking around, and I think everybody should be hypersensitive about your surroundings, because once you bury your head into something, a phone, a tablet, or whatever the case may be, that's when the perpetrators see an easy target.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we could talk about this all night. Mountain Girl, thank you for the $20 super sticker. I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to Real with Robo. She's a member for over 7 months, and she says, I'd also think someone who's given a tip on people involved, there may be details they mentioned that cops haven't released yet to help police know it's real. Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You want to keep that to yourself. You don't want to get that out there.
Yeah. It's dangerous to give information from a police standpoint out to the public, especially if going down the road, you're going to have somebody in custody, which we have Mr. Driver in custody. It's important that they keep this stuff close to the vest. Now, Ed, with both these vehicles, I'd like to jump in with a conversation about, you spent over a decade in a crime scene or more, right?
Over 15 years, yeah.
There you go. So a decade and then some. Here's a picture. I'll go full screen so the audience can see it. This is I believe it was a late model 2020 or maybe 2021. I believe a 2020 Chevy Silverado. This truck was impounded several days ago. And if you were the investigator on this case, two separate scenes, would you walk the audience through what you would be doing? Soup to nuts. I know this is going to be a long one, but everybody take your notes, get your pen and paper ready. Ed, two separate scenes, the victim's car.
Well, actually, you got the initial location, which is the Walmart parking lot. Okay, where the video is shown of the suspect walking around that area, and then standing there by those bushes and eyeing her parked vehicle with her in it from that vantage point. Now, so you have your video evidence. Now, the video evidence is good. We could use software called photogrammetry software and get measurements of his height. So we'll get his height off of that still, so to see if that matches the individual. Next, he's by those bushes, okay? And there's soil there and there's bushes. Each one of those plants has its own DNA. So if he rubs up against those bushes, there could be a transfer of fibers from his clothing to the bushes, and there could be a transfer of the bushes material such as pollen and DNA from the bushes and the soil and so forth onto his clothing, his shoes, and things of that nature. Now, this is.
Can I just stop you for a second, because a few people in the chat are getting a little ahead of themselves. We are not talking about the initial crime scene from where he forced his way into her vehicle. We are now speaking about the recovery location of the two vehicles. So Ed is right on point with what he's talking about, because he is hyper focused on the recovery of the Silverado, whether it's 2022 or 2020, the late model vehicle and her vehicle. So for those of you, and there's a bunch of you in the chat talking about the Walmart location, that is something that we may circle back on. I'm going to ask you about that, Ed, at the end.
Yeah. But I just wanted to bring up that Walmart because there's potential transfer evidence that he would then bring into her vehicle when he kidnaps her, takes over her vehicle, and drives out of that lot with her in her own vehicle. So now I would have at least 3 separate crime scene teams working the various locations. I'll have one team at the Walmart location. I'll have one team working her car, and then a third team working his vehicle. I don't want to cross-contaminate these vehicles. I'm going to treat each vehicle as a scene with the same crime scene investigators coming from one vehicle to the next. I want to separate that, separate locations, wearing full personal protective equipment on the crime scene investigators. Now, when he enters her vehicle, he potentially is going to transfer his hairs, fibers from his clothing, any pollen or dirt from that plant area that he was standing near, fingerprints, DNA is going to be transferred. And when he exits her vehicle, depending on the makeup of the interior of the vehicle, carpet fibers, if the seats are cloth, then the cloth fibers, maybe some cross-contamination of her DNA and his DNA with the steering wheel, having touched the steering wheel, to both operating the vehicle, he operating it after he kidnapped her, and she obviously the owner of the vehicle and operating the vehicle. There'll be some commingling of DNA in there. And so you're going to try to find bits of her there, bits of him there, and bits of the scene from Walmart there. And then when he gets out of, when he is interacting with her, there's going to be transfer again of her hair, her skin cells, her fibers, possible fingerprints, and it's depending on the news reports that you listen to, there is evidence of a crime inside of the vehicle. That's how it was worded in the news reports.
Correct.
So it could be an assault where blood was let. I don't know the exact evidence of the crime. They don't tell you what
Right.
they found in there, and they shouldn't. They want to keep that.
I want to interject just for a moment here, Ed, because this is what everyone speaks about on Facebook, on Twitter. I've seen some Twitter spaces where people are talking about that the FBI and the Lyon County Sheriff potentially could have the wrong guy. This is where DNA comes into play here, and everything that Ed just spoke about, and then some. To get positive identification, they have a suspect in custody. They have his DNA. They're going to get his DNA. They have the him in custody, and then they will simply take the forensics and everything that they get that Ed has just started to speak about from both his vehicle and her vehicle, and match it up. And when you have that kind of match, Ed, this is the $1 million question: how significant is that, and how accurate is that? If you have his DNA in her vehicle, his DNA and her DNA in both the vehicles, and potentially in his. What do you got?
And
right
fingerprints, and I mean, there's no defense to this. It places him in that vehicle, in her vehicle. It places him in direct contact with her in order to transfer these types of materials. Again, if it's blood that we're talking about as the source of the genetic material, it places him in the location of an assault where blood was let, and now he's transferred that blood to his personal vehicle, and her hairs and fibers and her DNA, and possibly other types of trace transfer evidence. We don't know the nature of the crime that occurred in there. But the man has a criminal record. Okay, so he has fingerprints on file, and I imagine if he did time and he was released on parole or probation or whatever the case may be, they have his DNA as well.
Yeah.
Also,
go ahead.
right. Also, there was another vehicle that was in that parking lot that he walked directly in front of, and that vehicle had to stop to allow him to walk in directly in front of. So we have an eyewitness that could potentially identify this individual, because there was no mask being worn by this individual, and his face should have been fully exposed.
Yeah, 100%, Ed. That's a great point. Jackie Vineyard. I love to call her Vineyard, and I do that by default. Jackie does all the chapters for us on Crime Time with DutyRon. She asks a quick question, and we're going to take questions at the end. There'll be a 15-minute Q&A session, so hold the questions. But Ed, how long do you think it would roughly take for results to come back on the searches? We won't hear until they are ready to charge. Now, you mean searches of the vehicle, Jackie? I'm assuming that that's what she's meaning, right?
Yeah, well, if she means like database searches for fingerprints and DNA, I think they already did that. That's why they got this guy. All right. Now, if they mean physical searches of land looking for our victim here, Naomi, that's going to take a while. They're going to have to organize that. They're going to have to get some idea of where to search, because then that either statements are going to be made by the suspect, or they're going to track the vehicle's movement with the onboard computers and software that's in the vehicle, or they're going to get warrants and then track the phone in that time frame from the time of the abduction to the time he was arrested, to try to triangulate locations that this individual was in, and then search those areas. You're going to look for pauses in activity. Okay, they track them to a certain location, and then they're at this location for about an hour, and then they move on to another location, and so forth.
Yeah. So the Walmart parking lot where the initial crime occurred, we didn't see it. It's on video. They confirmed that they have him forcing his way in to the vehicle. I don't know if he shows a weapon or whatever the case may be, but that area also was processed, but unfortunately it was processed after the fact, because we come to find out that this crime happened Friday night into Saturday morning early in the morning hours, and her brother Casey didn't go to Walmart and pull the tapes of his sister until Monday. So all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and Monday he pulls the tapes and he freaks out, and then calls 911, and then that's what gets the ball rolling. So I only heard this just about an hour ago, and it was on a Facebook interview. I think it was the Lyon County Sheriff right in front of the sheriff's office. And, I heard the brother go over that. Her father was there. I believe the 3 stepbrothers and her sister, and they were out in front of the sheriff's office. And when I heard that, I immediately cringed, because now you have, if this guy was a smoker and he threw a cigarette down, now you have a couple of days of maybe, maybe winds blowing and things getting blown around, a rain event. But again, Ed, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I want to talk more about the processing of this crime scene. We see this vehicle here, the Silverado truck, and we see it with tape on the door handles, on the gas tank release. I want to see if we can get it up closer. Okay, there it is. It's a little blurry, and it's not on my end. It's just the image is blurry. But we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of, looks like Scotch duct tape. Is that? Can you just explain for the audience what that is?
I'm not sure if it's duct tape, but it's it might be security seals that we use on doors and things of that nature to make sure that nobody goes in there that's not authorized to go in there. And then if it's broken, then we'll know somebody had made entry without proper authority, and then that would then break the chain of custody for any evidence that was found inside.
Okay, so this is really for security issues, to keep all of the evidence secure. This is like almost like a security seal,
right? To keep unauthorized people from entering the vehicle. I'm until the proper people can go in there and conduct a forensic investigation.
So at the 2 locations, you already described what would be what would go on. Could you just give for some of the people who are jumping in late, maybe just a quick overview of the processing of those 2 separate scenes? I know you just said a mouthful, but there's some more people that are jumping in, and I just wanted to give that really quick overview to them, if you don't mind.
So you would want to separate the vehicles into different locations. You wouldn't want to use the same garage for both vehicles. So you'd have 2 separate garages, and you would want 2 separate crime scene teams processing the vehicles, one team for each vehicle. You don't want the same team to go back and forth between vehicles, so that you can eliminate any defense claims that the reason why your client's hairs and fibers and fingerprints or DNA are in one vehicle versus the other is because the scene was cross-contaminated by the crime scene investigators. Right. So you have 2 separate teams, and then the 2 teams will not interact at all with each other, and they'll process the 2 vehicles independently of each other, and pull all the evidence. The documentation will consist of photographs, notes. You'll take written notes of all your observations, what you saw. You'll do diagrams. You'll draw the floor plan of the vehicle. You'll locate all the evidence, measure where everything is located within the vehicle, photograph everything, long range, medium range, close-up photographs with and without scales and evidence numbers. And you'll go through a methodical protocol for each of the vehicles. It's a standard protocol that we use in forensics for the most part nationwide. And we'll do it step by step by the numbers, and we'll leave no stone unturned. And I know when I get through a vehicle like this, I'm doing soup to nuts. I'm even going to take tire impressions. I'll roll those tires and ink them, and get impressions of the tire threads. I'll have all the make and models of the tires, just in case he doesn't have a full set of the same type of tires and things of that nature. I'll open up the radiator, see what's trapped in the radiator. You can have insects, bugs, plant life, all sorts of things trapped in there, and the air filters as well. And I'll take those so that we can try to identify where this guy's been moving around in the community.
Will they use luminol inside that truck to see if there's any blood or anything?
Well, if there's signs that blood was attempted to be cleaned up inside of a vehicle, then potentially they could use. We don't really use luminol that much anymore, but we use a similar chemical called Blue Star, and it does the same thing. It's a chemical luminescence in the presence of the heme from blood that when people attempt to clean it up and make it. You can't see it with your naked eye, so it's latent blood material, and
Right.
then you would use that. Also, alternate light sources you'd use like UV, because if in the presence of UV, blood will absorb it and turn black.
Right. And I'd imagine that they're working on getting search warrants to search his primary residence, where I think a neighbor saw his truck parked in there, and they called in. So heads up and kudos to the general public and regular citizens and civilians who saw something and said something. So they notified the authorities that his truck was in his garage and the garage door was up. So kudos to whoever put the police onto him. And I'm sure that search warrants are forthcoming on his residence if they haven't conducted them a search already. But quickly, I want to say thank you to Jennifer Nobles for the $20 super chat. She says, spreading awareness matters. As EquuSearch says, lost is not alone. My heart is all in, sincere and classic. Desiree Thompson, and much love to the families of Naomi. Awareness matters. Never lose a clear look. Wait a minute. Hold on. I lost it. Her super chat went away, but thank you for that, Jen. Fiber Floozy sends in a $20 super chat. She says, Ed, do you take the vehicle apart at all to find evidence? Thank you both for the clear look at this case.
Yeah, in some cases, Fiber Floozy, we do, we'll open up air filter cartridge systems, even cabin filter cartridge systems, because things get trapped up in there. Soil, bugs, insects, plant life, things of that nature. In addition, there'll be certain parts of the undercarriage of the vehicle that we may have to search for soil and blood stains and things, especially if somebody was run over and things like that. So we may have to take apart certain components of the vehicle and keep it as evidence.
Awesome. Hey, let's talk about quickly, Ed. Chevy has this OnStar program. They have the computer chip. I think it's called an EMC, something of that nature. Don't hold me to that for those of you who are technical gurus. There is a computer onboard diagnostic. It tells the rate of travel, the
speed of travel,
lane
change violations, or when you're making a turning, they'll have if you put the signal on or you didn't put the signal on.
Will they need a warrant to extract that information, or would that just be part of crime scenes investigation?
I'd get a warrant. I would not want to mess around with this case like that. I'll dot my I and cross my T. I'm in possession of the vehicle. The information's not going anywhere. So I'll take my time and go to a district attorney and say, hey, let's go to a judge. Let's get a warrant and get this electronic information correctly. And then we can download all that information and go through the data and see what it's telling us.
Because us law enforcement professionals, the FBI, the locals over there, the Lyon County Sheriff, they want nothing more than to bring this perpetrator to justice. He stands charged, for those of you asking in the comments and in the chat, he stands charged with kidnapping first degree, which could carry a life sentence just on that charge alone. The key for the investigators are now to find Naomi, bring her home, whether she's alive or not. To find her is the second piece of this puzzle, the most important piece of this puzzle. Again, the tracking of the vehicles, we talked about social media posts, interactions of all and any. They're asking to go back a whole year, but she only came into the United States, I believe, or living with the brother, August of 2021. Also, her daily routine. We know that she worked in Panasonic and took the shuttle. Were there people there to witness this guy? Does anybody else see him walking around? Was he there days before? Can we go back in the Walmart cameras, which I'm sure that they've already done, right, Ed? They've gone back as long as that DVR will allow them, and to see, hey, is this Jagaloon walking around nights before? Has he been stalking her for days? Is he stalking her on her social media? The DOT cameras, all activities from the days prior to this happening. As long as they have info, they're going to want to look back and interview everybody. Ed, I mean, like you said, no stone gets unturned.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. You're going to look at all those security footage. You're going to look for traffic cameras. You're going to look for ATM cameras. You're going to look for gas station cameras, home cameras such as Ring, anything like that in the path that might have been driven to and from that parking area for the shuttle. So yes, leave no stone unturned.
And she went into a convenience store before she got there, right? There's the video of her going inside and grabbing a little something, maybe a coffee or something, things of that nature, or, a little snack before, waiting for the shuttle to come. They're going to go to that location and they're going to ask the store clerk or ask the people, hey, have you seen this guy? Can you give me your CCTV camera footage? Most of these gas stations have some little crummy DVR that can go back a week or two. If you get lucky, you get one that goes back 30 days, which is awesome. They're going to extract everything and anything. Where the lows where the vehicle was recovered by, they're going to look at everything around there. But we have a desert environment. And this brings me to my next guest that is joining us just for a short period of time. He is the director of EquuSearch Midwest. Dave Rader, we all know and love him, and we want to talk to him about drone searches in the desert and how important that is in recovery of a potential victim out there. Dave, thank you so much for joining. There he is, Goldilocks himself.
The Cincinnati Kid is back.
How are you, my brother?
I'll tell you, I am so embarrassed because I could have swore you said that this started at 8:30. And I, on behalf of my whole being, I apologize because when I came on and I seen this was already 26 minutes into it, I could have swore we started at 8:30. So I'm a little late to the party, but nevertheless, I'm here. Here we are.
You're fashionably late.
Fashionably.
You know what? I didn't want you to come till 8:30 anyway, so I'm glad that you came because it gave us time to talk about the forensics part. So It actually is perfect timing, and I told Twila the same thing.
Perfect.
8:30, 8:45.
Okay.
So Vet Girl RWB says, is it known where the truck was parked prior? Please and thank you. She said please and thank you. So that was important. And I'm going to let you take that one because she was so polite on that.
Well, he drives out of the parking lot in her vehicle, operating her vehicle. And sometime later, several days later, actually, the vehicle ends up back near the original parking lot at a Lowe's, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so I wouldn't be too surprised if his vehicle was parked in that Lowe's and he returned, swapped vehicles again, and got in his vehicle and then went about his way.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll know the details of this because law enforcement is not going to release that. But before we get off base here, because I only have Dave for a short period of time, he's got a lot going on. He's doing a lot of different searches. He's involved in a lot of stuff. Dave, I know that, I didn't give you any background on this, but I'm sure that you've seen this situation. She went missing on the 12th, and we had a perp put in custody on Friday, the 25th. Quite a few days out, long time out in a desert environment. I just wanted you to talk about the interaction with EquuSearch Midwest and an agency like the Lyon County Sheriffs Department. If they needed Dave Rader and his services, just walk the audience through, because there's so much misinformation out there about you guys, and everybody thinks that you just have a cape and you fly around and you drop in. Just let the folks know how this goes from the beginning, of how it happens and how the ball gets rolling. Dave, I greatly appreciate that, and I know the audience would love it.
Not a problem. Again, we go off of law enforcement, of course. Without law enforcement, we won't respond or do anything with the case. Usually the family will contact us first, and then we'll have them reach out to the detective on the case. Sometimes law enforcement has a direct line to us, and they'll call us directly, so we'll respond. If that county would want our assistance, we would go over the case, of course, to see what kind of resources that we would need to put on the ground, if any, even on the ground. So in a desert environment, I think the drone would be the first line of us putting the search on, because you can cover a lot more ground. And again, with the technology that Gene and Chris has on their birds, would come into play with this. So whether the body is just laying there, or if this guy decided to bury her, then again, with the technology that's on Gene's drone, that would be able to tell if a piece of ground has indeed been disturbed. You could even tell that the size of it from looking at it from when you put it back into the computer. So I think with the desert environment, unless somebody has put him in a specific area, I think a drone would probably be our best way to attack it first.
Yeah, I concur. Desert environment, drones cover so much ground without fatigue for ground searchers. Again, you could go horseback, you could do ATV or all-terrain vehicles, but, still have the danger of getting stuck in the sand and whatnot. So you can cover the most amount of ground. And the fascinating technology of the locate is you can find a piece of clothing. If he ripped some clothing that she was wearing, it was I think it was blue in color, her kind of like sweater that she was wearing, it was like a long sweater, whatever that color is, you could put that in the program and it could pick that up, a little dot of it in the middle of nowhere. Isn't that correct, Dave?
Yeah. So basically all Gene would need to see on this locate program is literally a square inch. And in the desert environment, it's going to be a little bit different scenario, only for the simple reason that, when somebody's wearing dark colors like blacks or browns or greens,
right,
something of those, the nature's colors, it's kind of hard to pick it up out of a wooded environment. But in a desert environment, the colors are totally different. So you're going to be able to pick maybe some of those colors that you wouldn't be able to see in a wooded area. You would be able to see those in a desert environment.
Yeah. Amazing. Ed, you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, and the thing about it is too with the drones is you can establish a flight path pattern, and you can grid out the whole area and do the initial search via the drone, find the anomalies, and then send your ground forces into the areas where the anomalies are, so you're not wasting time and effort and needlessly searching areas with limited manpower and time.
Well, here's another thing to go with what Ed has just absolutely said. So when you have, like what Ed was saying, is that if you find those anomalies, you don't need 10, 15, 30 people. At that point in time, you can send 2 people to see what that anomaly is. Now, number one, it's you're saving your manpower. That's number one, and number 2 is you're less to contaminate that crime scene, because the more that you have, the more that the potential is there to actually contaminate a crime scene. So if you have 2, that's a lot better than 15 to 20.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Nothing but love. Denise sends $100 for EquuSearch. Dave, I'll get that out to you tomorrow. Thank you so much for the $100 super chat. Fantastic. These guys and gals do a tremendous job on all of these cases. I have been in contact, Dave, I already told you this. I've been in contact with Naomi's mom. I spoke to her brother on text message, and I spoke to her sister. So they have communicated with me. She mentioned to me that she reached out to the sheriff this morning, and I offered any assistance that the sheriff would need on behalf of the organization. And she said that the sheriff would get back to me. So for those of you in the chat, we've already made communication behind the scenes with the family and offered the services, just as we did with Gabby Petito, just as we did with Sincere and Classic, Orrin and Orson West. This is a professional organization that does nothing but short of God's work. So, again, Dave is that kind of guy. And Real with Robo said, or somebody said in the chat, wait a minute, you mean Dave doesn't have a cape and isn't Superman? It's just like what Tim Miller said about you. He called you a life-size Superman. And I mean, we have it on video. There's no getting around it. You are Superman, Dave. Again, if the family needs you, that's one thing. But the law enforcement is the red light, green light. If they say, "Hey, we need you guys to come and help us," if you can, Dave is going to now start his coordination machine. And I have joining us the director of searching, the Twila, the search coordinator. She is, and we're going to go like this, guys. Everybody, please say a prayer that Twila is going to be able to get on here with some good service. So Twila Cisco is joining us, the search coordinator. Oh my God. It's an ISIS video tonight. Twila, we love you. How are you, hon?
I'm good. I just got on here because I'm handling something, so I may not be able to stay for long.
Yeah, so I wanted to just get your thoughts of a desert search. We have an 18-year-old that went, got kidnapped, abducted by a perpetrator that's in custody on March 12th. Any thoughts on some of the toughness of searching in hot desert climate?
I think the roughest terrain that I had ever been on, I said it was Summer Wells, but then we had another one which was in Rocky Top, Tennessee, and let me tell you, that was some rough terrain. We're capable of doing it. I hope we're able to go in and do it, because we got some really tough people on our team that fights through the heat and fights through everything they can to do whatever we have to do to try to help with these families with the missing.
And again, there's so many challenges to this because of the different, we got rattlesnakes probably out there. You got a whole bunch of different critters that are creeping around in the desert. The danger to ground searching is tenfold when you look at this type of fatigue. You got people who go, can get quickly dehydrated. And you could talk about that. I mean, if you're out in these type of climates and environments, it's really a pounding. And that's why the drones, they have the pilots up every day searching for it. There is aviation up searching, and they're doing these grids. Dave, you and Twila both know about, I mean, I wish we had Gene here, but we'll do another show about that. But there are these search patterns, and they map it all out. It's not like they're just aimlessly flying around, right? So law enforcement, the detectives that are working the case will come to you guys. Do you want to, Twila, Dave, anybody want to take that?
Twila, you want to go take it?
So it's just throw me out there. No, I'm just kidding.
The boss.
So there's a lot of work that goes into it before we decide, okay, we're going to take these people out here to do this. We have to do lots and lots of mapping, and the areas have to be recon. Dave, myself, as well as other members of the team go out to these different states and areas that we're going to be searching for somebody in. And we have to look at it ahead of time and determine what kind of terrain it is. We try to prepare ourselves for the snakes and all the wildlife, but it's hard to do because you never know what you're going to run into. So we do the reconning, we do mapping, and we also share that with Gene and Chris can program, and Gene can program this into their drone so that when that drone gets up in the air, it's just going to fly that specific area that he has mapped out on his map that's programmed into that drone for that particular search. So there's a lot that goes into it beforehand, before we just take people out there. I mean, we have to go get familiar with the area and look at the terrain and all that good stuff ahead of time.
So advanced planning, safety meetings, and you're being guided by the investigators, because they're the ones who they're not going to open up their case file and tell you, oh, this is. But with this, they're searching for this girl. The perpetrator's in custody. We're not searching for a perp. We're searching for either her remains or somewhere where she might be stashed. Again, this is all part of the good that goes on behind the scenes. And when I reached out to Naomi's mom, Diana, she was just elated. She was thanking you, Dave, and Twila, and myself, and Ed, up and down. And she was saying, thank you for reaching out to try to offer help for my daughter. I am wearing the Gabby Petito Foundation hoodie sweatshirt. Me, Ed, My brother, the retired lieutenant, and Joey Brooklyn are going to go to the Gabby Petito fundraiser. It's their foundation is going to support great groups like EquuSearch Midwest and some of the domestic violence shelters and things of that nature across the United States. So I like to get around people who are doing positive things for victims and their families. And Dave, I know that Nicole and Jim and Joe, they've expressed such gratitude for just the offer of help from Gene out in the Teton National Park in Wyoming when their daughter was still unaccounted for. These are the kind of things that, and I can go on. I think I have like 5 sheets of all of the different cases that you guys have been on. And Dave told me last weekend, I said, how was your weekend, brother? This one that just passed. And he was like, where do I start? I'm just so busy. The phone never stops ringing. Dave, do you want to talk about the stresses that go on when you juggle in these cases and the phone calls that come in? Just talk a little bit about, because some of the people want to know, how do you handle all this?
It's very tough. And to be honest with you, I have a great support team around me in this organization, such as Twila. There's so many moving parts behind the scenes that makes my job a little bit easier, but nonetheless, I think at last weekend when we were in St. Louis, I had 6 cases that was going on. Twila has 3 of those 6. So I've got one that's close by here that's out of Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, that we were just contacted on this afternoon. So we're kind of working that. That's close to my house. So it's the phone calls are just never ending. And again, we cover a lot of territory in a lot of states. So, without the right people in the right spots, it makes my job very difficult, but I'm very blessed to have the people that I have surrounding me to make my job a little bit easier.
Yeah. Ed, you could talk about how important it is to have a good team. When you were in crime scene with the New York City Police Department, how important was it to be able to rely on your right-hand guy or girl? How important is that when you're going out on the investigations?
Absolutely. My partner and I had many partners, and I was a training detective. So any new person that came into the crime scene unit into my squad, then I was the guy that was assigned to train them. But once you had them all trained up, you knew exactly what each other needed to do. Sometimes you never had to talk to each other because you knew exactly what was going to be done. And you do it so often, it's muscle memory. It's so repetitive. We're following the same protocols and procedures over and over again. Now, I'd just like to give a shout out to the Lyon County Sheriff's Office, because I trained many of the people there. I've been to this area, Reno, multiple times. And I every time I go there, because of the altitude and the dryness of the area, I would end up getting sometimes nosebleeds and sinus infections, because coming from the Northeast that are very low to the water here, the ocean, the humidity is much different than it is there. And so it would always take time for me to adjust. So, but they're state-of-the-art sheriff's office, state-of-the-art equipment. They have everything they need to conduct a thorough, professional, investigation.
Yeah.
And so I have every confidence in their abilities. But like anything else, you need force multipliers like Dave and Twila's teams to come out and assist. And it's take no shame in reaching out to these organizations. They're professional. They know what they're doing, and get them out there and they'll assist you.
Teamwork is what makes the dream work. And that is a very true statement, because Dave has said to me so many different times on multiple conversations that we have in the course of a month, how important Twila and his team is to him. This is just unbelievable. But I want to just say quickly, Denise, Nothing But Love sends in $100. This is for Twila. Hopefully she can get better cable/internet service. I think we have probably amassed about $300 or $400 over the last couple of live streams for Twila. So, Dave, you're going to have to dispatch an AT&T specialist or some kind of team member out to Twila in bum Idaho or wherever she is, and get her some help. We need to get her on, because if she was as clear as you are, Mr. Goldilocks, everybody would be really happy, because Twila is. We want to see her. Now, we don't want to just hear her. We want to see her. But reeling it back in, Naomi is an 18-year-old teenage girl who came from South Africa. She's been very active on social media, and she's been, as per her sister and her family, she was the kindest, most giving person. So she was very open to friendships with people, whether it's on the internet or whatever the case may be. And they want her found. I mean, families, Dave and Twila, you hear it all the time because you deal with these people, direct. They want their loved ones home no matter what. And we pray and you hold on to this, the hope that she is somewhere alive. But as these days go on, and because we're in this business a long time, the law of averages come into play here, and we don't want to talk doom and gloom, but we do want to be realists about it. So we're praying for a miracle. We're praying that she's found, but it's going to take a lot of work. And that's why I called Dave and Twila and I asked them to come on, because I thought you folks as the audience would be, it would give good value to you guys to understand and know what it takes and why these guys don't just bounce around and say, oh, they don't have 100 command posts or command center trucks where they can respond. There's, they have a team, of people, but they're all either housewives and fathers and parents and situations going on, and they're all volunteers. Dave, you want to talk about volunteering for EquuSearch?
Yeah, like I said, we have all walks of life when it comes to what makes up this team. I've always said before, it's like we're a bunch of misfits that fit. And again, it takes all walks of life to do this. And these people are in it for the right reasons. And that is, again, that's a huge portion of this is that you do have so many different individuals that can bring so many different skill sets to the table. It's just amazing. We have nurses, we have AT&T guy, but actually, to be honest with you, we have every walk of life that wants to volunteer and do the right things for these families. And if I might say something too, is that this family is going through the heartache that the Patinos did, and and I think that if they reach out to this mother, I think that it would be awesome, because that would be their support system, only for the simple reason that they just went through this themselves, so they can kind of bounce off and they have these feelings that we can't identify with. We can only assume what they're going through, but they've lived it. And I'll tell you, that's where this foundation, Gabby's foundation, is going to come into play, is to help even the families, not only the search teams and to bring resources in, but I think that, being on a family level that's going through this, to help them get through this process and what to expect is they're going to need this right now and in the days to come.
Yeah.
Amen.
And that's the great part about supporting the foundation, like the Gabby Petito Foundation and others. I went on a charity live stream with Pop the Corn Planet, Andy, and I donated $1,500 from this channel to a battered woman shelter in Tampa. And I didn't even have a second thought about it, because it's so important to fund organizations and groups that are nonprofit that rely on donations. You guys operate on donations only. That's what keeps everything going. And you're searching for the missing. That's the great part about being involved in something like this, is there's no greater reward in life than volunteering your time. And with all the things that go on in our daily life, like for me, I volunteer my time to fundraise for you, Dave, because I love the work that you do. Twila, I love the work that you guys do, because you're helping other people. And Ed and I, we dedicated our adult lives to helping complete strangers in the New York City Police Department. When we would get called out to crime scenes or when we were on patrol, we didn't know who we were answering the door to. We were just public servants who were going out and risking our lives for the betterment of society. And you guys are doing it in a different way. You're going and you're bringing closure to families. And if you don't find the missing or their loved ones, you put the effort forward. And that's more than what most people do in a lifetime. So I'm honored to be a part of it. I'll wear this hat until it gets dirty and grungy and smelly. And then I'll ask you for another one after that. But yeah, Ed, again, we're up into the hour mark. I like to try to keep these things at about an hour. We have, again, the pinpoint of the show was the forensic side, and we brought in Dave and Twila to talk about the searching side. We'll continue to follow this case. There's so much more to it. I think the next court date is Wednesday, the 30th, and that's for a bond hearing. I will tell you, you hear in this first, Ed will stamp this with his seal of approval. There will be no bond granted to this savage beast. This guy is a filthy, evil monster. And, when the DNA and all the evidence gets collected and comes back, he will not be seeing the light of day just based on the kidnapping first-degree charges in the state of Nevada. So that's the good news. The bad news is that we do not have her found yet. We need to find her sooner than later. We need to support her family, support her loved ones. Do not engage in toxic conversations. Don't speculate on whether, this is happening and that is happening, because we don't know what's happening. Let the police and the investigators do their job. Ed, can you talk just a little bit about the importance of keeping everything close and tight?
Absolutely. They have a prime suspect now. We don't know all that they know in law enforcement, and nor should we at this point. They probably know a lot more than they're letting on to. And, I hope this guy doesn't think, if they can't find this body, he can't be prosecuted for it, because that's not true. Yeah. Okay. His best opportunity now is to give this up. What happened, who was involved, where Naomi is, and it's time is of the essence. We need to know now. Is she still alive? Is she being secreted someplace? Is he hiding her, or is it worse than that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Twila, I removed you because I saw you were answering a text. Yeah. It's just so important to support the family, get around the law enforcement. Your local law enforcement needs your support. We still need you to call in any tips to the tip line. I have the secret witness line linked down below in the description. I will add EquuSearch into the description if you want to become a supporter or a searcher. There is a form on their website. Dave, do you want to tell them how they can go about doing that?
You just go right onto either our website or our Facebook page, and you can just follow the easy steps. That's right there on both the website and also on our Facebook page.
Yeah, and I promised everybody, yes, I'm going to link that down below so you guys can go on there and see. There's a form that you fill out, and you can make a request and things of that nature. Ed, if you don't mind. I know that your overtime rate is high, but if you don't mind, could we take 5 or 10 minutes to answer some of the questions? Because I want to just say the audience has been fantastic tonight, and I know some people are asking some tough questions. I'm asking everyone to be respectful to the family and be respectful to Naomi, because she is outstanding. We don't know if she is alive or not, and it's not fair to speculate on who's behind this and who is also involved, and let's just try to stay away from that. But Ed, would you mind taking a couple of questions from the audience?
No, absolutely not. Of course, that's what I'm here for.
Right. And if you're not yet subscribed, let's please get this thumbs up on this video. Let's get it up over 500. I don't know where we are yet, but let's get the thumbs up on the video. Everyone give it a thumbs up. Make sure you share it. Leave a comment at the end of the video. We always like to answer it. So let me go back and look. Texas girl, because I love the state of Texas. I love all the different states, but she says, EquuSearch are superheroes. Lots of love to you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Ed Moskowitz in the state of Idaho says, love and respect to each one of you professionals. Thank you so much, Dr. Ed and Julie. Joyce Brooks sends in a $12 super chat. She says, March 24th, we left Anaheim, California at 11 a.m. We arrived in Henderson. I know Henderson. That's the second place that I know in Nevada. Traveled north on the I-15 towards Vegas. A truck was going fast, weaving in and out. Birds flying all over the place. Not sure what that means, but thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for the super chat. If you want to send me that message to DutyRon.com where you can elaborate a little bit better, I would be more than happy to entertain that. I don't see any questions. I'm looking at questions. Does anybody see any? Ed?
No, I think we answered a lot. So would it be safe to say that we? Well, you just disappeared.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, Ed. Here it is. I got it.
Okay, would it be safe to say that we should get those tracking devices on our cars, or can they be hacked by criminals? Well, that's a personal decision to put a tracking device on your car. The new cars have them. And it's like a black box on an airplane. They have all that information, and they're gathering all that data about you. What speed you're traveling, your lane changes, stop and go, how you're driving, things. And sometimes, like in fact, insurance companies have those devices that you can plug into your vehicle to get that information, and sometimes they reduce the rate of your insurance if you're a safe driver or things of that nature. But again, it's your personal information. So just how comfortable are you with sharing that kind of data? But it's not a bad thing if you have kids and you want to keep track of your kids.
But if you have a lead foot and you let your insurance company put that in, then your insurance gets raised.
Well, every time there's a vehicle accident with a fatality, those boxes are getting seized.
Yeah.
Okay, and then warrants are being issued so that they can open them up and look at the metadata.
I'm going to tell you something that I did recently, and I did it because my brother had an accident, and he had a dash cam in his vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a forward-facing dash cam and a rear, and it's mounted to my trunk with a 256 gigabyte memory card, and it could just record for over a month, and then I just erase it and then I reset it. But that's a great thing to have, and it records audio and video, and you get to have everything on your vehicle. So if someone comes in front of your car, like what happened here, you'd have a video and a recording of it. You'd have a recording of actually the audio as well, which is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked, how far back do the GPS go on? She's talking about how long does it go? Is it on an endless loop, or how does that work? That's a good question.
We don't know what system they're using and what's the software they're using. So I can't really answer it intelligibly as to how long that could be.
We'll certainly look into that one. That's a good question. So I like to take these questions, but they're going so quick. Yeah, we are not experts on OnStar. We would have to get a computer crime specialist or somebody that is in the auto field, and I'll look into it. I'll definitely look into it. Lieutenant Pete Pranzo, good to see you. Thank you for joining. You and Richella are great supporters of Crime Time with DutyRon. We greatly appreciate everybody. Some people were asking how far the cars traveled. We don't have that information, but I would tell you this, that law enforcement knows that, and they're going to keep that close to the vest. They're not going to release that. They're not going to release travel methods or mode because they don't want gawkers to go there. In other words, if they say, well, she traveled down, he traveled with her, here's the route. Now you'd have everybody and their mother coming out, including YouTube people that would try to get out. Here's the scene that they traveled. That's a nightmare for law enforcement, right, Ed?
Yeah. And to answer Lieutenant Pete's question that you have up there posted, I wouldn't be too surprised if at the bail hearing they come out and they say, hey, we processed Naomi's vehicle and we found the defendant's fingerprints and DNA in the car. Okay. Because like I said, he has a criminal record. Those things are on file. It'd be an easy search with the AFIS automated fingerprint identification system to find his fingerprints in the file. And as he said, if he's a parolee or probation, he did time. So when you leave prison, they normally have your DNA. And so if he's in their DNA database, that would not be hard searched either to find. Once you've identified him via fingerprints, then you put the name and the DNA match. It would be relatively quickly. So that could come out in the bail hearing because, he's going to have to, defend why and how he was in that vehicle.
Right. And they have him on video from
Right.
Walmart, forcibly going into the vehicle, making her scoot over to the passenger side. So they're kidnapping first degree. Maybe he had a gun on the video. We don't know. Maybe he used a weapon. Maybe he had a knife. Maybe he had a crowbar. He whatever he did, he scared her enough to scoot her over, and we don't know. But
and we talked about this off camera, Ron. I mean, this is not the first time this guy's done this.
I don't think so.
Especially given his criminal past. I'd be looking at old cases, unsolved cases that with similar MOs. Maybe because usually guys like this, they're drifters. So I would find everywhere this guy's lived and see if there's any unsolved cases that match this. Our
friends at the Federal Bureau of Investigation are working probably on that as we speak. Diane B., who is my next door neighbor, she can throw a rock at my house. If she does it, I'll lock her up. She said, I had a GMC and I had over 1 year to see back. So she had a GMC vehicle, and it's been a while since she had that GMC vehicle. But that is the technology that they have, and I would imagine that it does go back quite a bit. And here they wouldn't really need a long time because she only entered that area, at least living with her brother, according to her brother, August of 2021. So that's where they would probably shoot for, because if she's not here in the country or not in the state, then there's no need to go back that far. If she was in South Africa before August, then all they would need to go is back to that far. So thank you, Diane, for that.
I'd be more important looking at the social media. What was his social media? What was her? Did they interact on social media? Did they know each other before this incident, or is this just random?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. I said in the beginning, we look at the social media posts, the interactions, every interaction that she's ever had from getting here into this country up until March 12th, they're going to look at it. And again, Dave and Twila, I'm sorry that we're keeping you here for this investigative part, but I think it's important that you hear in case there's a question that's thrown out to you guys. So
Absolutely.
There's another question here about working the vehicle's grills and tires. I brought that up earlier. Yes, we're going to search those areas. We're going to look for bugs and insects and plant life that may have been trapped in these areas to try to see if they drove through certain locations. If we find soil, we'll collect that soil off the tires, off the underbody of the car to see if they drove off road and into an area, and then we'll try to identify that area where that soil came from, the plant life came from, and things of that nature. Even animal feces. It's been done before.
Yeah. Excellent question, Rose, and thank you for that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, could we take a moment to light up the chat with the rainbow colors? That is one of her favorites. If you can, prayer emojis and the rainbow emoji for Naomi. Let's light it up in case her family is watching or watches the replay. And we're going to send out a lot of prayers and strength and love to her entire family, her mom, dad, brothers, sister, her stepbrothers. There's 3 of them from the Ukraine. They were adopted, I believe, 3 years in the past. So their country is crumbling at this point with what's going on over there, and her mom has made mention of it. So thank you to everyone for lighting up the chat with love for Naomi's family. That's what this is about, supporting the families. Rose, again, a good question, but Dave answered it. How does a disabled person volunteer for EquuSearch? You didn't answer the disabled part, but Dave, if you want to take that.
What is it, the disabled part?
Yeah, Rose says, Dave, how does a disabled person volunteer for EquuSearch? She may be meaning, can someone help with telephone calls, with fundraising, things of that nature?
Again, if we're in your area and we do a generalized search with the general public, absolutely. Not everybody can go out and work the fields and go through the physical end of this. And those people that can't or are unable to, we absolutely utilize those in the command center, such as doing paperwork, putting together snacks for the searchers, there's a multitude. Everybody's equal. You know, we all have our strengths and balances, but again, you know, as far as we've had a lot of people that just physically just can't get out there, but they'll give people water. They'll be there for moral support. So yeah, everybody's welcome.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be turned away. If you want to volunteer and help out, there's going to be a way that, you know, they could put you to work and help out, you know, whether it's on a, you know, intermittent basis. You know, like Dave said, not everybody can get out there. I mean, some of us, even myself, you know, you have a bad back or you got a bad knee, things of that nature. You still can. My expertise would be the communication between law enforcement, and Ed and I have that. Ed, you're smiling. What did you see?
Oh no, I just saw a familiar face, and just want to say shout out to Jennifer Johnson. Welcome,
Jennifer Johnson. Hello, Jennifer. Welcome. I'm trying to find her name. I didn't see it in the chat. I wanted to highlight it. Let's see. Where is she?
Well, you highlighted one of her.
Oh, okay. I was doing them right. Oh, there she is. Bingo. Look at DutyRon got her. Very good, Jennifer. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the prayers and the rainbow emojis. That's awesome. Everybody is really being respectful in the chat, and I love that everyone's doing that. Black Rose 11, great to see you. Again, Jennifer Noble's boots on the ground zero in Bakersfield for Sincere and Classic. I saw Keish all day here, and Roro. I didn't see her, but love to Roro and the family. Everybody out there in Bakersfield, we still have to find those boys. You know, and the job is not done until we get some kind of answers. So it is not easy. It's not an easy thing emotionally, physically. We look at what Twila and Dave go through on a regular basis, and it's just it plays heavy on your heart, is what I'm trying to say. It's not something that you could just turn on and off. So again, guys and girls, this has been Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, Dave Rader and Twila Cisco from EquuSearch Midwest. I love you guys. I think you guys are the best. And will you come back again sometime soon and hang out with us and talk about cases?
Yes, absolutely.
We will. Absolutely.
Thank
and
you.
I just want her family and everybody else's that has a missing loved one know that you're not alone, and we're here. And even if you just need a listening ear, and there's already other search teams out there, please feel free to reach out to us on our website or our Facebook, because we don't mind talking to anybody that's struggling with something like this. And I'll tell you, the families, I feel so bad for the families. The search that we were on this past weekend, the guy that's missing, they went and had dinner with us, and I'll tell you what, when they started crying, I literally started crying. And I told Dave, and I could see the emotions in his face. And it's just like, they become our family. And we want everybody to know that has missing loved ones that they can reach out to us, because we do care, and you're not alone. We're here for you.
Yeah. And that's apparent with you guys. You're so dedicated to this work that you do, and it shows. It's apparent. But before we let you guys go in the chat, Ed and I just wanted to talk a little bit about my skin cancer journey. I've had 3 spots removed again from my head, one on the front, one on the back, and one on my arm over here. My wife, on our anniversary last week on Wednesday, I was laying across her lap and I was being a baby, and she was petting me. She was giving me the DutyRon little, pet. And she said, what is that? She's pointing here in the back of my head. And I'm like, babe, I can't see the back of my head. I don't have eyes back there. She's like, let me take a picture of this. So she took a picture of it. I went to the dermatologist, and he said, I don't like what I see. So I'm waiting to get the biopsy back from that. So prayers for DutyRon. Ed Wallace went for an endoscopy. That's down the throat with a camera, and they removed something. Ed, you want to talk a little bit about that without giving everybody the pussy details?
Okay. Well, I've been having a series of issues since 9/11. Acid reflux was one of the first diseases that I was diagnosed with, and anyhow, so the GERD, I had encephalic esophagitis, so the white blood cells were attacking the lining of my esophagus. I was having esophageal spasms, but recently started having bouts where I'd be at dinner, and all of a sudden food would get stuck in my esophagus, and then it'd be chest pain. difficulty breathing, which would lead to vomiting. And I went to my GI doctor, and he said, okay, let's scope. And so we did the scope today, and he found a white growth inside of my esophagus that had been causing a blockage. And he excised it and sent it off for biopsy. And, so I asked him if he thought it was cancer, and he said, oh, let's just wait until we see the results back from the biopsy. And I saw a concerned look in his face that he hadn't had before, because I've had several endoscopies with this particular doctor, and also colonoscopies. And folks, these cancers like esophageal cancer and colon cancer and rectal cancer and so forth are easily detectable and easily treated when found early. So don't put off getting these intrusive testings. It's vital for your health and your lives and your family. So
yeah, early detection can be the difference between life and death in these situations. And that's why I'm going to the World Trade Center screening tomorrow. And I never miss it. Every year I go, they do that breathing test. They check my lungs. They take my blood, and it's all done by the federal government. So we're in that World Trade Center health program. It's funded until 2084. I don't think we'll be around for that, Ed.
No.
But it's for our lifetime, and that's part of Ed and our response to the attack on our country, the World Trade Center, on September 11th.
And it will be for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So between the cancer all over my body with the skin cancer, and Ed's already had his bouts of fighting and winning against cancer. So
it's going to take more than this to put me in the ground.
Exactly.
Y'all are our heroes, and y'all are super strong, because the day that you went and had your procedure done, DutyRon, I was on the phone with you, and I was like, wow, how does he keep himself going with his health and his job and this and this?
I had 12 stitches in my head. I had 12 stitches in my head when I was talking to you. Coming home. So, and that was just a couple of months ago. But this is what I say to cancer.
Oh, hell no.
You ain't going to beat us. So, yeah, a lot of love and respect from Ed Wallace, myself, Dave Rader, Twila Cisco, on behalf of EquuSearch Midwest, Crime Time with DutyRon. For the family of Naomi, we send strength, prayers, positive vibes, and well wishes for a recovery and or a good outcome here for them. That's all we can do is pray for them. So if there's anything that we need to do or anything that you guys need going forward, we're just a phone call away. I gave all my information to the family, and each and every one of them has our information. Ed, any final words?
No, thanks for being here, folks, and listening to us while we went over the case. And as Ron said, we're going to be praying for Naomi and the family. And God willing, I'd like to see a positive outcome in this case. And hopefully she's still alive and we can find her and bring her home to her loved ones.
Amen to that, brother. And like I always say at the end of all of these, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. And God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially all victims of crime and their families across the globe. But especially right now, Naomi and her family, they need us now more than ever. So let's pray and give them strength and positive vibes. Dave, Twila, Ed, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you to the replay viewers and everybody in the chat. Love and respect, guys.